Why would this viewer send me this? An ESP USA guitar. It's gonna be a little bit different today. Oh yeah. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Do you guys remember the Miku episode? How you decided he wanted to try an ESP USA. To which he asked me if I'd be down to review it, and I said, sure, let's go ahead and do it. So here we go. Super pink and sparkly. I was not expecting that rainbow prismatic effect to this finish. That's actually pretty cool. So not only is this USA ESP, but it's baritone scale length. So 27 inches, kind of like a bucket head. That's interesting, but did you notice? We've got an extra string on this one, 7. If you're not familiar with ESP, they're primarily a Japanese company. However, in 2014, they opened up a USA division for reasons that I could only assume fall to the buyers with the mindset of, I love Metallica, and I would like to try one of them fancy ESP guitars, and I've got 5 to 7K burning a hole in my pocket, but oh man, I only buy USA-made guitars. So here we go. You can visit their website, very similar to how Fender does their mod shop. You can pick your finish and some of the hardware and pickup choices. There's not a lot of options, but I'm sure you can probably contact them to get crazier things. But prices will then get more expensive. But they have this custom shop located in North Hollywood, California, and do crazy things for dealers all the time. The body shape of this one is known as the M series within ESP's lineup. It's essentially their take on a Super Strat. And this finish is known as Disco Pink Sparkle, and yeah, 7-string baritone, definitely custom features. So overall, my first impression is the finish is cooler than I was expecting it to be. I mean, look at the dealer stock photos. I wasn't really all that impressed, but how you probably knew what to expect. It's got a good weight to it, not overly heavy, but not super light. But I just noticed this. Look at our output jack. It just built into the edge there. I had to take a look at that for a second. They literally just sank that into the body farther than usual. It's just your regular Stratocaster style one, but instead of being sunk up here, it's sunk onto the edge. Interesting idea. Helps it tie into your strap. 7 strings always have really wide necks. This one's super thin. I'm not going to be able to do too much justice for 7-string today, but overall I would say it feels surprisingly similar to their Japanese-made guitars. If you're curious how much this one cost, it was $5,200 brand new. So on the lower end for one of these custom-made ones, but that's because it's spec'd out with the Seymour Duncan style pickups rather than the active Fishmans or EMGs. But for a custom USA-made instrument, that really doesn't seem too bad if you're in this world. I mean, it is a pretty basic guitar. We don't have any floating trems. It's a bolt-on neck construction rather than neck through or set. But besides just our guitar, we also have a case that we were looking at earlier. I really like it. It's a nice royal blue interior. They've got the ESP branding on the top lid, just in case you want some extra bragging rights for it. The exterior Tolex quality is actually quite nice. We've got a cool badge on the outside, and it's not just a basic case, it's actually form fit. Now, to be fair, it's got Dunlop strap locks, stock from the factory, so sometimes that can help eat up some of the dead movement, but that complements our disco pink finish perfectly. Well, let's see if we can find where these are made. Oh, you can always tell a Chinese-made case by the pull tab. That's where they skimped. Everything else actually feels really quite nice and deluxe. Even our latches aren't too bad, but that pull tab and the smell inside of this, that gave it away. But I did not see a tag over here. But if you can't find it in this location, I suggest looking over here or up here. And hey, there we go. Chinese-made case. But there is a pretty nice leather strap in here. We get an ESP USA envelope that is serialized on the back, which contains our COA as well as all of our detailed specs that they put on this one. When everything's custom, you never know what you might have in it, so that's very good to have. This one was only recently completed. Then we've got a polishing cloth ESP decal, which everyone knows you put it directly on the guitar as soon as you get it. You're welcome, how you. And oh man, another one. That shouldn't cause any problems at all. I kid. We're just having fun today. But we do have our Dunlop counterparts in there, as well as our truss rod adjustment tool for whenever we might need to utilize that function. Oh, and don't forget about your silica packets with matching blue text and the cool fret guard these ship with. So to learn more about our Disco Pink Sparkle friend, let's go ahead and throw it onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs, and then we'll attempt to get some sort of a tone sample out of it. Let's see what's under the hood. There's not many screws on this thing to take apart, and I basically did this for nothing because the Seymour Duncan code gets covered over by this foam block. Same thing is true for our bridge pickup, but you can see the branding on the bottom side, as well as our very clean pickup cavities that have additional shielding paint within them. I don't see any significant markings to note, but if we can believe our spec sheet as well as the very fancy Seymour Duncan font on these, this is the Black Winter 7 model. Very scary. Within the circuit, I get 19.83 k ohms. The neck is 15.2, and they play together meanly at 875. But don't forget, you do have a coil split on your tone position. That should half it. So 4.4 in the middle, 774 in the neck, and our bridge nearly 10 still. But as you just saw, this is not a 5-way blade switch. It's just 3. Now, could they put a 5-1 and then had this be split? Yeah, but it's just a little bit easier to visualize it like that. And then this is your master volume on a black knurled knob, and the tone like we were talking about earlier. I didn't see it pertinent to rip off the bridge just to see the underside of it, but you can see it's secured by at least 4 screws, and this is a hip shot fixed bridge. Had this had a Floyd Rose or something on it, I probably would have told how you. It sounds really cool, but I just don't like dealing with that stuff. But a string through hardtail, yeah, I'm all for that. You get saddles for each individual string to set your intonation. These pickups don't even utilize a ring around them. They just screw directly into the body. There's some guys that swear that gives you better tone. And as we saw earlier, you've got these foam blocks to help set the height of the pickup. So this is your maximum height, but then you can compress the foam just a little bit to make some personalized adjustments. Now let's take a second to appreciate our finish. There's our rainbow effect. I can never tell if it shows off on camera or not, but I think here we can see it pretty beautifully. But this is spec'd as a mahogany body. It's got some good heft to it. Now as far as how many pieces it might be, I don't see any exposed wood anywhere or lacquer sinking lines to be able to comment on that. But your neck gets screwed onto it. It's made of maple, 3 pieces. We'll see that on the back. Then this is an ebony fretboard. You've got a full 2 octaves here. So you got your first 12 frets from here, and then you go all the way up to 24 here. And as far as our inlays, they're pretty basic. They're just dots. However, I was very impressed to see that they're actually abalone. You can see it right here. You've got a little bit of color within some of them. For me, that was another tipping point, because at first I was like, yeah, kind of boring fretboard, but it's got a little bit of character. I do like it. But you can see your white side markers, and you also have a little bit of streakiness within the board right there. Well, this ought to be fun. 1.92 nut width, increasing to 2.36 inches by the 12th. Very skinny 0.8 first fret neck depth, and it increases to 0.89 by the 12th. To be honest, while playing this, I never even noticed it got chunkier because it's such a wide neck you don't notice any of the beefiness. Does anybody make a 7-string actual big chunky neck guitar? I would love to try that because they all just seem to be these really thin shredder necks. They call it the extra thin U-shaped neck, if that means anything to you. But to me, looks more like a C shape in your chording area, where the bass side has a little bit more shoulder to it, and then it cuts away just a tad bit. It's not super noticeable, but I do capture it here on the gauge. When I think U-necks, I think like a Telecaster with a really chunky neck. So I think it just depends. Are you in vintage world or shredder world? I would personally call that more of like a C and or D shape. And here's a visual confirmation of our Baritone 27-inch scale length, but with a familiar 12-inch fretboard radius. Now, as far as the face of our headstock, you get your shiny ESP logo, as well as our model name up here. M, once again, is the model name, 7 for 7-string, B for baritone. And then I think you can tell me what the USA marking is. Then we have a relatively basic truss rod cover. It's 2-ply, black-white, that secures utilizing 1 screw. And then it's got a rectangular channel route here for our rod. Now we'll take a quick peek at the top side of our locking tuners and continue on more on the back. Successfully strung back up, I was reading the spec sheet and I was surprised to see that this comes stock with Diodario strings NYXL 9 gauge. I thought for sure a guitar like this would be slightly heavier than that. It feels heavier, but it's just because you got this extra string. And also in that additional research, apparently this was a small batch run of these. There's at least 1 more of these currently on Reverb right now if you want it. It's not this guitar, but just thought I'd throw that out there just in case you end up falling in love with this thing. But let's start with our neck. Here we can see our screws that secures it to our mahogany body, but it cuts in a little bit right there and is really ultra rounded over, and then has an additional cut down here because the guys that play solos like this, it just gives a little area for their hand to fit into. So I would say it's a very ergonomic design. And while the body is a full gloss finish, you actually have a satin finish on the back of the neck. It's got like a semi-glossiness to it. It's not a cheap, nasty feeling satin by any means. I don't think your hand's gonna stick to that. But then we have our comfort cut over here. And the body is pretty chunky, about 1.8 inches. For reference, the upper bout of a Les Paul is about 2, whereas their center is about 2.5. But here's a peek at our output jack again. That's just funny. It hides in there. Then inside our body, we've got our string through ferrules to string it up. But inside our backplate coffin, that's what we got. A whole lot more shielding paint, a standard blade switch. If you look closely, it's an ESP branded pot, and then a standard style push-pull. And oh man, that is kind of cool. I knew it was recessed into the body and would lead up into there, but I thought for sure that we were just going to be running wires a little bit deeper into it, but no. It has been recessed deep enough that the end of the output jack just naturally occurs right here, so it can easily be wired up. And you can see their drill mark right there, that's funny, but they've got paint all over this thing. Just when I thought I'd see some bare mahogany exposed somewhere. Nope. And then we touched upon our Dunlop strap locks earlier. The nice thing about those is you can also use them as a regular strap button for a normal strap if you just happen to not have one. Your other one's up here. We already talked about the finish on this neck, but it's actually 3 pieces. Now, could you order one with crazy figuring and flame? Yeah, but this one's very basic and plain. They're letting the finish do the talking, but you get a lot more colorations up here. And this edge piece has a very characteristic wood grain pattern. I forget which it is, but it tells you how it was cut. That's the next thing I need to burn into my memory. But then we've got a volute up here to protect our headstock. And our tuners are Godo Magnum Locking. That's quite an interesting name on those. I do appreciate that they actually have instructions, because sometimes you can have brain farts. Which way is locking, which way is not? Because I can't tell you how many times, due to switching the headstock from back to forward, you get mixed up and you're just turning and turning forever. And you're like, am I going the right way, or is the tuner broken? Because sometimes locking tuners are finicky. So they at least have a little bit of help for you, if you happen to need a reminder. But here's our serial number, US 24761. I would hazard a guess that means USA made 2024, and it's production number 761 for that particular year. And then it says ESP handcrafted in California on the back. But now, all said and done, it only weighs 8 pounds? Which I get it, 8 pounds might not seem like a lot, but this feels way heavier than that. And usually that's due to a guitar that's not distributed evenly, and that's not the case here, so I'm not sure what's up. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how a baritone 7-string sounds. I haven't played a 7-string in a while. I've never really figured out what to do with them, but it's basically just another low E, so your fingerings are kind of the same for that as far as this shape with pentatonics. And if you've always thought of a 7-string as like a doomy chug 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 guitar, yes, they can be that, but I do believe the initial reason why they were invented was for jazz guitarists to play even more fancy chords. So in theory, you can change my normal tone samples and add your B string in. option with the 7-string is just forget that this is even here and try to adjust to a really wide flat neck and play it like normal. And then think of ways to add it in. The coil split does come in handy. It gives you a little bit more grittier of a tone when you're heavy. So there we go, an ESP USA documented on the show now. What are my final thoughts on this? Is it my preferred color scheme? No, but it's fun. It's not your usual like blood splatter paint job on a 7-string. It lightens it up, makes it fun. But I will say this thing is really heavy to have on a Strat for a while. It's well balanced, but you got a lot of weight on the headstock from all the tuners, and you need a counterbalance for that, so it's not like, yeah, you'd use a lighter mahogany body, because then it'd just be neck dive city. So I'm not sure if you could play this on stage all night long. But as far as a 7-string baritone, in fact, I completely forgot that this thing was a baritone during the playing demo, because I actually recorded that before I tore it apart, just in case that low B string broke, because I do not have an extra one of those. I was far too distracted with it being a 7-string, but I instantly bonded excited with this one, and I think it's just because I like baritone guitars in general with the 27-inch scale length. Longtime viewers of the show know the Buckethead is my favorite modern Les Paul ever because it's got such great deep tones, even tuned to standard pitch. So this guitar has a similar thing going on, but extra bottom end, which allowed for some fun experimentation. Ultimately, do I think I need a 7-string every day in my life? No, but I would definitely be down to trying a regular 27-inch baritone from ESP again. Once again, thank you, How You, for constantly supplying us with very interesting guitars. And if you're a proud viewer of the show and you're in the market for something that I don't normally cover, feel free to reach out. New Guitar Day is not strictly just for Gibsons and Epiphones. In fact, I rely on that to cover other brands. And if you want to see coverage of other cool brands, check out the NGD playlist where I have all those together. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you learned something new today and came away with some more guitar knowledge, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.